If you're familiar with pentatonic scales, you know that you can use them as both major and minor pentatonics. My system of organizing them, as you remember, is based on what string the root resides on. We only use the 2nd through the 6th strings. Let's listen to this progression and see how we would approach it. The chords are B minor, A, and D. And the A is a little punctuation. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. I call it a punctuation because obviously it doesn't last very long. I want you to disregard what you have to do on the A chord for the moment here. As far as chord forms, we'll get to that in just a minute. I want to talk primarily about the pentatonic scale. You know that if you play over the D chord, you'd play D major pentatonic. And let's approach it using, for example, the 6th string root pentatonic. That's aligned over the G form chord, so we're in the 7th position. That's called the 6th string root pentatonic. Well, there are 2 notes on the 6th string. Your 4th finger root is always major pentatonic. Your 1st finger root is always minor pentatonic. That same D major pentatonic is a B minor pentatonic scale. Remember, the reason it has more than one name is because you have to analyze the notes in any scale or chord against the prevailing bass note. If D is our bass note, we have 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. If B is the bass note, those notes change numbers. It'd be 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, so you get a different sound. The beauty of this is that any time you have a chord progression that involves a major chord and a minor chord 3 frets lower, you can stay in one pentatonic scale. Now, you might wonder why I'm talking so much about the scale when this is the CAGED lesson about chords. Well, they're all integrated. This also means there's a relationship between the chords. Now, you need to have some minor chord forms, and I said that I was going to give you these 5 block chord forms that are very similar in the CAGED system, but they're minors. Actually, we'd have to call it EDCAG, EDCAG, because those are the corresponding minor forms when you have them based off these pentatonics. I'm just starting with the letter E because most people, when they're playing minor, would tend to think 6th string root. So if we have B minor on this song, that'd be a 6th string root, B minor chord, and it's derived from your E minor folk chord. That chord form will always have the 6th string root pentatonic scale, minor pentatonic on top of it. You can see the chord coming right out of the scale. And that works really well on this progression because we can just stay in that one position. Now I'm hitting some good notes. How do I hit the good notes? Because I see arpeggios. I'm thinking about the notes that make up the prevailing chord. When I'm on the B minor chord, that's the chord form. Remember, it's your E minor form, the first letter of our silly word EDCAG. Here's your arpeggio. 1, flat 3, 5, 1, flat 3, 5, 1, flat 3. You can see the chord comes right out of it. During the B minor, I'm going to stay close to those notes. But then we had to go to a D chord in the progression, right? There's your B minor. There's your D. When I go to the D chord, I have, in the same position, my D chord played with a G form. I know that the arpeggio is just like that, so I know where the strong tones are. Now, actually, you can kind of just riff around in that pentatonic scale, and you're going to be pretty close on this kind of progression. You could go through, I don't think I'm going to show you this, because you could go through on your own after you learn all these minor forms. You could take this particular progression and learn it in 5 areas, the same thing that we did with our other progressions. And it's important for you to study that way. But for now, let's just stay in this position. Now, earlier on, I told you that you don't need to worry about that A chord for the punctuation. You're only on it for one beat, right there. Then it goes to the D. But if you want to line up and really sound like you're with the chords, you need to think about that. Let's look at our chords. We have B minor, with our E minor form. Notice how I might finger it different ways. You know, don't get all confused with that. You got a lot of different fingerings available. Then I have to hit an A chord as a punctuation. Now most people would go, and that's a good way to play it, but we're trying to consolidate everything in one position. Therefore, you have B minor with the E minor form, derived from your E minor folk chord. Then we need an A chord just for a punctuation. The A chord in that position would be the D form. You see that? Then you need to go to your D chord with the G form. Now, when you're playing rhythm, you might punch that in, you might not. But the point is, you want to see all that information there, and your arpeggio, I just need the arpeggio because I've only got one beat on that chord. I'm going to make sure that I hit one of those notes, and I'll stay up on the top strings. And that way it sounds like I'm right with the chord. You see how I just got that line? Just playing simple little melodies and really, you know, stressing that kick of that A chord, that punctuation. Let us review here. We have a B minor chord, A, D. That's our progression. The B minor chord we've chosen to play with our E minor form. Our pentatonic scale is a 6-string root pentatonic. There's your arpeggio. Then we have an A chord as a punctuation, derived from your D fingering. Your arpeggio is there. Your 2nd-string root pentatonic is the appropriate pentatonic, but you don't have time to think in terms of pentatonic unless you're playing fast, and I don't want you to play fast yet. Then we go to the D chord with the G form, and there's your arpeggio. Then your pentatonic scale. You have all of that activity in one area, and you can play effectively through this progression. As I said earlier, you could repeat this process in 4 other positions. I'm going to leave that for you to do. I don't want to spoon feed you. I've shown you how to do that with the other progressions. And I really encourage you to spend some time. Spend a week or 2 in one area, then learn the next area, then consolidate those 2. Don't go on until you can see more information. All right? Now, in the next section, I'm going to go through and explain all of the minor chord forms with their associated pentatonics.